Okay, welcome everybody to the agenda, the special city council meeting with the combined McHenry Planning and Zoning. I would ask for a motion though from the floor. Yes, Alderman.
I'll make that motion.
Sassy.
Motion for Alderman Glab to be Mayor Pro Tem. Is that what you're asking?
For the meeting.
For the meeting? Yes.
For the meeting.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
I got my script on.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
We'll pass on.
Okay.
Or abstain.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Cook, absent. Alderwoman Miller?
Present.
Mayor Jett, absent. Alderman Glab? You passed, so I'm coming back to you.
Abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
Yeah, we got that straight now.
Okay.
We're not having the pass.
Now, with that, I would ask the Planning and Zoning to open their meeting as well.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:02 for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Monte, would you mind doing the roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Davis?
Yep.
Commissioner Brimmer?
Here.
Commissioner Locke?
Here.
Chairwoman Rockweiler?
Here.
Commissioner Lehman? Absent. Commissioner Riley?
Here.
Commissioner Gleason? Here.
Okay, now if we could all stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I'd like to pass along to Ross.
Do we want to jointly open it up for public comments?
Yeah,
Can we do it
do a
jointly?
public comment. Is there anybody here who'd like to make a public comment? For either the council or the planning and zoning?
Public comments that are not on the agenda. Oh, including the
Everything
agenda. Oh, I thought we would do that
included in the
afterwards. Anyone up for public comments?
Okay.
All right, we'll close the public comment section.
Okay. So, Ross, if you would do the introduction, please.
Sir, thank you. Appreciate everybody coming tonight. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a very important part of our community tonight. The comp plan is something that we haven't done and we're updated in probably 10 years since Doug did a full job on it 10 years ago. So I ask that you just listen and, ask questions of HDR or comp plan consultants tonight. Be involved. It's kind of more of a laxed atmosphere, discussion, so feel free to jump in whenever you want. With that, I'm not going to tell that, so I'm going to pass it. You heard me last night, Demond. So I'm going to pass it off to Jeff Young from HDR. He's going to introduce his team, and then we'll go ahead and get going with the slideshow.
Thanks, Ross. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Young. I'm project manager. Tonight is our project director, Shai Roos, and project planner is William Wellington. We've been quite busy in the last several months, dating back to October or August. So we're going to give you an update on where things are at. Again, as Ross said, it's really a discussion here tonight. We're going to fill you in, but we've got some great discussion points later on that we want to engage you with and get your feedback. Probably the one thing that all three of us, not only us, but as well as everyone on our team, has really enjoyed this process working with yourselves, city staff especially, and then probably most importantly, the community. We're going to be talking about that, but the folks that we've talked to throughout this project so far have been really engaging. The feedback we've gotten from them has been really thoughtful, and they really care about the community. So it's really exciting to be able to get that feedback from them to help you understand what the community is saying. So tonight's agenda, we're going to kind of talk about the process, the overview we've been doing, talk about the community engagement. From those discussions we've had with the community, we're going to share with you their observations as well as in us and staff, the challenges and opportunities that are in front of the city, and then start to lay the groundwork for the framework. How is this plan to go forward? And then from that comes the vision, the goals, and then we'll talk about next steps. So with that, I will hand it off to Shai, or William.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Great being here. So to start off, we just want to give an update on where we're in this process. So like Jeff, we started off about end of last summer, late July, early August. Some of you might remember our first presentation here, and that was phase one, the project kickoff. So right now we're here at phase three, which is where we're defining the plan goals. We've done a lot of engagement. We'll talk about it in a second. Right now we're working through developing vision statements, goals and strategies, and identifying some catalyst projects. And the next step, phase four, is when we really start to develop the actual plan and draft plan for your review. So to develop the plan that we are creating here, we wanted to reach as many people as we can. And so we've been making a concerted effort to get out and meet people where they are, invite people to events, go out to different activities and pop up wherever we can in McHenry. And so far we can count about 2,000 people that we've interfaced with directly. And that's through pop events, intercept surveys, newspapers and press, social media, and everything else. And in that, we've got about 7 or 6 different engagements that we've done. And so in August, we came out and we went to the Pearl Street Farmers Market, where we had a booth, and we talked to a lot of folks about, what they love about McHenry, what challenges they face living here. We interviewed downtown business owners and talked to them about what it's like downtown, how new development has affected their businesses. We also did events, bands, barbecues, where we set up booths and try to catch people who are coming in where they are, where they're having fun. But we also wanted to go out and talk to families. And so in September, we came back and we went to the VFW fields to talk to folks at the Little League games. We went to McHenry High School and taught about 3 classes. We did a little lecture on what planning is, and we asked, what is your vision for McHenry? Let's say you move back here. Let's say you want to stay here for school. What do you want to see the city develop into? We had charrette, or a public design workshop, in November. And I'd also to point out that we have some attendees of that charrette and our other events here in the audience too. And thank you all for coming out again. And in that charrette or design workshop, we looked at 6 sites around McHenry and came up with ideas of how could they develop. This isn't prescriptive in saying, oh, this has to develop here, but knowing that there's similar properties all throughout the city, such as these 6, what can we do to create a development that is aligned with the vision and goals for the community? So we've got some pictures here. We wanted to, make sure Cody got his moment in the spotlight. You see where we were set up outside for the downtown and court, and some of our design charrette and workshop. And here's just some examples. I think most of you have received a charrette report. I'm not going to go into the details, but each of these is, like I said, just an example of how property can develop in different areas. When Shai comes up later, she'll talk about the framework plan. That explains how these sites can be applied all throughout McHenry as templates for how to develop. So the survey was a really important part of this process. We just wrapped it up. It closed on February 2nd. It was really important for us to get as many people as we can to participate in the survey, so we ended up leaving it open a bit longer than we planned. So we kept it open for 78 days. That was making sure that we had enough time to set up social media reminders, reminders to the city website. We put flyers in pizza boxes. We put brochures around, posters. I think that we got 404 surveys. It's really hard to get people interested in comprehensive planning, as I'm sure you know. So we're considering this a great success. Usually, we get a lot less than this, and so we're really, grateful for all the efforts of everyone's staff here who send out Nixle pushes and bought pizza boxes together and sent flyers to businesses to get this response rate. So you can see most of the respondents came from a social media or city website push. We got 16% from the school, and so those classes we talked to and the administration at McHenry High School sent out reminders for students and their families to take the survey, and a lot of those participated. And it was really important to us to make sure that the people responding to the survey actually represent the population of McHenry. And so we made sure to double check, are we getting the demographics in terms of race and ethnicity or in terms of age of the population answering the survey? We didn't want one group to, outweigh the other. And, to that point, I think we did a pretty good job. And so you can see here, we got a great representation from the youth population. So we actually exceeded that. But everyone else is pretty much par with the portion of the demographics that they inhabit. So in that survey, we put a series of topics in here. And so these topics were all listed as priorities from the original engagement. So if you've seen the engagement summary, or if you haven't, it's on the web. I'm sure Ross and Cody could send it to you. We came up with a list of topics that have popped out as priorities for the community. And what we wanted to do next is figure out where's their consensus. while all of these are priorities, the lowest one doesn't mean it's no longer a priority. We wanted to see what is consistently ranked as the #1 priority for folks. And that was pretty clear. New sidewalks, bike lanes, and trails for biking around town. So that infrastructure that allows folks to get around town by foot and by bike by means other than car is really important to folks. And you notice the last thing down here that was only ranked 3% was walkable development with a mix of uses. And so what we've heard from our conversations, it's less on the developer to make a walkable environment, but more about a cohesive series of trails, of sidewalks, of bike lanes, of the river walk that create everything or make everything walkable together. And so it's not just piecemeal, but it's actually a network that people can traverse throughout the city and get around by different means. We also asked folks to evaluate the following statements. And so these are statements we're going to use to support the goals and strategies that are going to come in the next phase of this plan. And so we put a series of statements up here. I'm going to read all of them. But we asked, do you agree with the statement? Do you strongly agree with it? Or do you disagree? Or are you neutral? And we got some really interesting information on where there's consensus. And so for very strong consensus, where 80% of folks agreed was around economic development, walkability, which still keeps seeing a theme, open space and conservation. So this is both, in terms of parkland, but also in development and making sure there's, space conservation, nature is included. It works with the environment when new properties are developed, and redevelopment. And so I think we all know, and we'll talk a bit more later, there's a lot of vacancies, a lot of vacant storefronts, especially in some of the commercial stores. And so there's a lot of interest in how that gets redeveloped into something a little bit more vibrant and connected to the neighborhood. We had some strong consensus between 70 and 80% agreeing for year-round park programming, shared parking downtown. We've heard a lot about, we like the development that's happening downtown, but we need a place to park. And when new development comes in, rather than having a parking lot in every single development, can we have some centralized locations where we can park our car and enjoy all the amenities downtown? Youth entertainment was also a constant feature. We want to make sure that, McHenry has entertainment and activities for all ages, not just adults, but, young families, children, middle school, high school, and even, beyond. Indoor recreation was another common theme, and I think that's come up a lot in other parts of these processes. So making sure that there's all-weather facilities, opportunities to do recreation, even in the coldest months or the hottest months. So something we heard a lot about was making sure we invest in not just the downtown portions that are really vibrant, like Green Street and Riverside Drive, but also on the west side of town along 120, on Main Street, near the metro station areas that have felt like they've not exactly been focused on. And additionally, Riverwalk connections. The McHenry Riverwalk has been a great asset, and people are really excited about it, especially connecting it to other trails. And so parts of the plan are going to look at connections to the Prairie Trail and other paths around town to create a more cohesive network. Most people agreed that sidewalks and bikeways, which is another element of that walkability and bikeability, the rural natural heritage, what makes McHenry feel like McHenry and not just like another town, and preserving historic buildings that have significance in McHenry are important. And then there were some items that we got a little bit less consensus. And so, people consistently told us that Metro service was an issue and that they don't use Metro often, or they don't feel like they can use it often, or there's nothing around the Metro station that draws them to that area. And so this is something to explore on, we don't have consensus on what would make those trains, what would make Metro usage more frequently. It's not just the frequency trains, but it might be how Main Street is developed and what amenities are down there and what brings people not just out of McHenry, but to McHenry, as well as, alternatives to driving, mixed-use development, and affordable housing. There was a little bit less consensus on some of those. Another part of this, and Jeff will talk about this too, is, at the end of this process, we're going to have a comprehensive plan that is a citywide plan, but we'll also have a downtown plan. And so part of the survey was making sure that we understood more about downtown. And so we asked, why do you come downtown and how often? The surprising part was almost everyone comes downtown pretty frequently. You can see 43% of the respondents, almost half of them, are at least downtown once a week. And so that just reinforces the vibrancy and the activity that's been happening, especially as new are incoming and building downtown. And unsurprisingly, most of the respondents come downtown to dine, and as more restaurants come up, I'm sure it's going to continue to be a theme. About a fifth of them come downtown to shop. And last but not least, a few people work downtown, but I think what we know is employment around McHenry is a bit more dispersed into some of these employment centers, and Shai will talk a bit more about that too. And we just wanted to know how do folks feel? How do they feel about this plan from their involvement with it? How do they feel about how McHenry's been going? And overwhelmingly, majority of folks think that this plan is helping put the city on the right path, but also kudos to you and the city administration. 63% are happy with how things have changed in the 20 years and the way direction is going. And so I think that's a really important part of this is that there's a lot of positive momentum to the growth in McHenry and a lot of positive momentum to planning for what that next phase looks like. So with that, we wanted to open up for our first point of discussion. Is there anything here about the engagement process or the feedback we received that stands out to you or you find surprising?
One of the questions I've got more than anything else, I think, is all right, you contacted or have dealt with conversations with 2,000 people. Do you know what percentage of those are actually residents of the city of McHenry and those that just visit the city?
So we do have that within this presentation, but there will be a summary report of the survey, and we do have that identified in the survey. So we ask people, are you a resident of McHenry? Do you work here? Do you live in unincorporated McHenry, or do you just visit frequently? And so we do have actual statistics on that. From the conversations we've been having, it's a little bit more anecdotal. I'll probably say about 90% either live in McHenry or live right outside of McHenry. And then we did get, especially at some of the larger events, some folks that come down here for, festivals and for events or to shop or to dine. And had a lot of people who said this is a great meeting. And so I have a friend who lives, closer to the northern suburbs and a friend who lives out in Rockford, and we like to meet in McHenry. But by and large, most are residents.
I mean, more so than anything else, I feel that the strongest surveys that we should be looking at are our residents, because they're the ones that are paying the note on a lot of this. So just want to make sure that they are totally represented in these surveys, and I'd like to make sure that we get some kind of percentages of who we're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the vast majority of folks who took the survey live in McHenry, but we have numbers tied to that, so we can get that to you.
I have a question. When you say that you talk to people as far as conversations and everything else, what percentage would you say that you've actually talked to people while they were downtown?
I think that we officially have done, if you count Pearl Market as downtown, I think we've done 2 main events downtown, and then we've dispersed elsewhere. The VW Fields were outside. Bandsburys and Barbecues was out at Peterson Park, and the high school, of course, not necessarily downtown. So I'd say, in quantity, maybe about 40%.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I guess there's quite a few people that have questions. So let's start with Alderwoman Miller.
So I'm on slide 9, and I'm surprised by 38% thought that a high priority would be sidewalks, bike lanes, trails for walking, yet 3% were only concerned with walkable development downtown. I would have thought those would have been more in alignment with, we want to be a walkable city, and clearly they think about that for recreation, exercise, motivation, but not putting it together with a walkable downtown development. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah, something to keep in mind too is that we ask people, what's the priority for this plan? And so downtown is already pretty walkable. And so the development that's happening is building into that. There's already a strong network of sidewalks, small block sizes, all those things that contribute to, that walkable feel. And so, what we know, people go downtown because it is walkable. It's a place you meet up and walk around and do a few things. And so you might say, if I'm giving you a priority, you're going to choose what we don't have as a priority to focus on over what we already have, right?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the more importantly, this plan is long-term, and you went to the schools. So I'd be interested to see what the reaction to your visits there were. Will you come back after you graduate, et cetera? And because the population in that particular queue is starting to get smaller, so I'd be interested in what their take was as their most important asset to this plan.
Yeah. So, when we talked to the schools, we heard a few common things. There's nothing for us to do, really, especially in winter. So that's come up from students, but also from parents and other people we've talked to. To your point, who's staying or who's coming back? I think we asked that question in the class. Raise your hand if you want to see here after high school. And honestly, we got a few responses, but we got plenty of people who said, "Oh, I'd be interested in coming back." And when we started talking about the future and what's your vision, people got a little more excited, like, "Oh, well, if we had cafes and places to hang out, we'd totally be excited to come back here." And we were really excited with the participation from the high school students on the survey because, we told them that when we taught those classes, this is a plan for you, importantly, because you're the ones that are going to be starting families and in your careers and when 2050, which are, our target year. So when we taught it and what they want, they got really excited. We heard a lot about certain fast food chains that they want, told them we can't really plan for that, but, come back and get the demographics and maybe they'll come look here.
Alderwoman Bassett?
I just have a real question. Do we have extra flyers for the residents that have attended so they can also get the package? Do we have extra of these?
I'll see if we can get some printed before they leave. I don't know, but this will be online, so we'll be putting in the document center of this presentation, and you'll see a little bit later some stuff about the charrette. That will also be posted. We want to have this conversation first, but we're planning on putting all these materials that are public-facing online for you to review.
Thanks.
One of the things that in the past that I've always found that when everybody talks about a want list, everybody, they want this, they want that, they want that. Now, the question, did you ever kind of hint around in the conversations as far as, are you willing to pay for it? Because that's a big, big thing. I mean, I've had people over the years, they'd love to see this in McHenry, they'd love to see that in McHenry. And then when you tell them, what kind of costs they're looking at and what the average resident would have to pay, they're not so excited anymore now. So, have we, are we talking, apples for apples? So that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and something we try to make sure whenever we do comprehensive planning or long-range planning is really try to, help folks understand what this actually means. So this isn't a wish list, right? This isn't, I want this here, I want that there, but it helps build a series of priorities that you all can focus on as new developments come into town and new opportunities for funding arise for public infrastructure and other amenities. One thing that came up a lot is, like I said, in the high school, they want specific fast. We can't choose something or put something here. What we can do is make sure that we have the framework for future development to have that in consideration. But this doesn't have funding associated for specific projects. So that was really important to explain that these are concepts that show a type of development. These are not developments, right? And so it's part of this as an education too, that this isn't a wish list to your point, and a lot of stuff will have to happen to make this implementable, and that'll be something we explore in the phases of this plan is what kind of funding from different state, government, and federal sources need to happen for certain improvements, what you need to go after, what have to happen for these things to be implemented.
Yeah, is there a problem with people staying because of shortage of affordable housing and or development not necessarily supported by government or anything? I mean, where does that fit into this? Because if someone graduates from high school, goes to university, college, military, wherever they go, may find it more attractive in Tennessee or something without the amenities just for the fact that they have more affordable housing. How does that fit into this? Did anybody bring that up? Or was it was affordable housing, or was it just more housing?
So the conversation about affordable housing really focused on attainable housing, so not affordable housing in the sense of subsidized housing, but rather, do my kids have a place to buy once they graduate college and they want to start here, or do I have a place to downsize to? And so it's the type of housing, quantity of it. You'll see here that 43% disagreed with the fact that I feel like there are affordable housing options. And so the questions we're asking are, do you think that you can afford housing here where your family or loved ones can? Something that's really interesting is 43% disagree. Big portion neutral, neither here nor there. Very few people actually agreed to that statement. So you can see the green bar here. I think we've got maybe 10% of folks agreed that there, is affordable housing for them in McHenry. And so that's really illuminating. We've got some numbers in the existing conditions report that show the difference in, income and home value in McHenry versus other areas. And so that's something we'll explore is, how can you increase house stock in certain areas in strategic manners to, supply and demand, create more opportunities for housing that allow for starter homes and places for downsize and that create a more generally affordable climate.
Okay, it doesn't seem like anybody else has any other questions at this time. I guess you can go on with your
Ready to keep going? Great. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff now. And he's going to talk a bit about opportunities, challenges, and our vision.
Thank you. So once we, hear back from the community and start talking to staff about, just what we presented to you, we start to identify, what are those opportunities? And we looked at it from two perspectives. One is the city as a whole, which then we'll talk about the downtown. So when we look at the major opportunities, we look at the redevelopment potential along 31 and 120. Future transportation projects, we got the widening of Illinois 31 coming. That's going to provide a lot of opportunities when that project comes through. It also presents a challenge later on as well. So, the good with the bad. But planning for those types of things is what's important. The zoning reform. And really, when you think about, what is this plan? Why are we doing this? And the idea, as the saying goes, planning to fail is failing to plan. That when you look at, what is it that we do on a daily basis? And when you look at staff, what are the things that they have to contend with in terms of developer coming in? And then when they present a development opportunity before you all, what are the things that you have to contend with? And with having a sound plan that is before you, that you can say, well, does this fit my plan or not? And as we talk to staff, we start hearing about how, well, there's a lot of amendments and there's a lot of, it's kind of like a patch planning effort that's going on. So that's an opportunity, is that if we can address and make the plan, the vision that everyone is having here, make the plan fit that, then the plan almost becomes like a marketing tool. And by that, developers can see, oh, this is my type of development I like to do. The city has a plan for it. They present that to the city. It fits with the plan. They present it to you. You already know that this fits with your plan, and then it just flies through the process a lot faster. That's really what a developer wants. Grease the skids. A developer has a choice between getting something approved through a body that may take 6 months versus 18 months. Time is money. So there's a great opportunity. And really, when you kind of encapsulate the whole feeling for what this plan can do, that to me where the rubber meets the road. Challenges citywide, struggling retail corridors, the housing affordability that William just talked about, jurisdictional conflicts. Having worked at the county DOT for years, I know exactly what it's like when a municipality comes to us and says, hey, we have a project that we're doing. And our first question is, well, where are you at in the process? And well, we've already started, the plan engineering. That's hard. But if you go to another jurisdiction that you may overlap with, and you can say, hey, we're thinking of doing something down the road. What are your ideas? And so by engaging other agencies way early on in the process, that can really help, again, grease the skids. So that's a challenge, but yet it's an opportunity that you can engage with this plan to say, hey, we have identified a need from a transportation corridor, for example, county, state. We want to, how can we make this thing work well for both of us? When we look at the struggling retail corridors, that's another thing that we heard a lot about. William kind of touched on it. Shai's going to touch on it some more. Is, people were telling us, well, we need more retail. And then when we take a step back and we look at it as, through our expert lenses, we see a lot of vacancies as well. And so you start to scratch your head, well, they want retail, but there's vacancies. So what's the problem? Why isn't there a connect here? And that you've got retail opportunities, but yet no one's moving in. So what is that type of retail? Again, it comes back to plan. What are the new things that are out there that may be a better fit for some of those areas that are vacant? When we look at downtown, the opportunities, economic, that is a huge driver there. Connecting to local and regional trails, the walkability, the more you can connect the city and to downtown, it's really interesting. You don't have just one downtown, you've got a couple downtowns. Access to open space, people were always telling us, especially along the Riverwalk and things like that, they love it and they just want more of it. The plan improvements, the streetscape plan, Miller Point, those are just, great things that we carry over and over. Those are excellent opportunities to build off of. The challenges, traffic congestion, ped and bike access, and then major infrastructure. I kind of hinted at that before, the major infrastructure. So we have the widening of 31 over by Main Street. That's great. It's going to provide, throughput, but yet when you provide that opportunity or present that, now it presents a challenge for those that are not in the car. How do they get in and out and around and crossing 31? Now you've provided a wider cross section for people to cross. And so that's a challenge. How can you overcome that? So these are the things we're going to be looking at as part of this. traffic congestion, I mean, there are two sides of it. You know, I've talked to people in the past, you know, communities where they're like, oh, I want traffic to drive slow, so they want them to go slow through my town. I want them to stop so they can look at my stores. But then you've got other people that are like, I don't want to get in the car and go. I don't want to have to deal with all the traffic. So that's balance. You know, how do you handle that? So when we look at the vision that's the culmination of all this input, and take a look at engaging staff and the public for the citywide. This is a draft. We're going to ask you, your thoughts on it. Is there will be a vibrant city and a destination for families and individuals of all types. It will be a place where businesses choose to locate, and anyone can access their daily needs by bike or foot. Green space will be connected with trails, and each part of the city will have access to shopping and local services. And then when we look at the downtown vision, will be a beating heart of the Fox River. Downtown will be a place accessible on bike, foot, with a vibrant local food scene and business community. It will be a place where new businesses invest and grow local operations. Along the Fox River, public spaces will have something for everyone and will connect to all surrounding neighborhoods. So with that, again, we want to take a minute and pause and kind of get your guys' feel about, what are, how do those visions fit with the things you've been thinking about?
Well, you mentioned, you talked about retail, and people say that we need more retail. We need to do a better job probably to find out exactly what type of retail they want. And more than anything else, what will they support? Because you ask the average resident, no, they think, we should have A, B, C, and D, but maybe B is the only store that, out of those four that they mentioned, that they would actually shop. And I think that's important. We want to bring in businesses, not that just open up on a risk that wind up closing up in a year or so, but those that will be supported by the residents here. I think of one of the older stores that closed up many years ago, Spurgeon's, and I am sure a lot of us remember Spurgeon's, and it closed up only because the chain closed up. That's a chain of about 13 stores or so, 12 or 13 stores. And so the company itself went under because they only had 4 stores that were making money, and McHenry was one of them. Because people supported that type of store, and that's what we need. We need to find out what kind of stores that they will come, that they will support and they will go to. And I think to some extent we need to start with one shopping center and get them up, because I think one business will take and off of the next business if they bring in. So, I'd like to hear comments of how we could move forward to find exactly what kind of businesses we should be going after. Not always is it the chain stores that everybody wants, so that's my opinion.
Yep.
I just wanted to comment, I'm assuming you do consulting work for other cities as well.
Mm-hmm.
The talk about the needs for bike or foot, like the walkability, is that common in most cities, or is that something unique to McHenry residents? Or, I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's something that's not just unique to McHenry.
Yeah, so that's something
we hear
that
that
more communities are trying to work for. And then I love the word choice for the vision for downtown, that'll be the beating heart of the Fox River. I love that. My family's big boaters, always are in that area with our boat. So I like that with the downtown, connecting it to the beat heart of the Fox River. Good word choice.
Alderman Santi?
Yeah, thank you, Stacy Wachreiler, because that's a good point in regards to the beating of the heart with the Fox River, because it's finally a useful tool that we're seeing as, I think it's an excellent marketing, because I've made this statement before that we don't necessarily have a interstate going through town. As it stated earlier in this, the metro is close to being non-existent. And when you really look at, especially people from the outside that are going to spend money here with retail and spend money here in restaurants, the way they come to our town from an enormous, the Chicagoland area is on the river, where you have boaters from Palatine, you have boaters from Arlington Heights, you know, you have boaters from all around these communities, where they can actually see the city now, and we have something that they can see and view and enjoy, and make them spend more time and stop in stores, stop in restaurants, and be able to spend some of their money here in this area. So I do appreciate that statement. One kind of minor, I don't know if you have any responses on it, but on your challenges on slide 17, the third one was talk about, you know, construction with roads. You know, you mentioned Route 31 expansion. Did you get any responses about maybe where there should be expansions of highways other than the Route 31 project, which is still to be done over the next few years? Any other?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that, and I think a lot has changed in the last 3-4 years since COVID. I think that has really changed how people get in and around and how they anticipate things to be able to move around. To that extent, I mean, we haven't really, you know, nothing really came out like, oh, you need to do this. I mean, if anything, it was maybe a discussion about 31 and 120. If anything came out a lot, was, you know, that western section. You know, the east one was, you know, addressed not that long ago. But you know, it's interesting too, because when you look at when IDOT came through to start planning that project, I mean, when was the last time they had a public meeting for that? So, I mean, it might be a lot, you know, one of those out of sight, out of mind, that all of a sudden they're going to wake up one morning and there's going to be a shovel going on out there, and they're like, oh, that's happening. So it'll be kind of interesting how that, you know, people probably aren't maybe that attuned to it as they were maybe like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago when IDOT was really doing a lot of that public involvement for that project.
Alderwoman Miller.
So I love on the vision for McHenry, slide 18, that you use the word destination and you start to coordinate multiple points of entry. Right now, we really think of 2 points of entry, 31 and 120. But we start talking about boaters and bikers, and walkers and hikers, and, you know, that starts to look at the Prairie Path and Metra and the river, and people could get here from all sorts of avenues. So I love the incorporation of the word destination to give people the idea of get here and there'll be something to do. Because in my industry, a lot of times people, yeah, we drive through McHenry all the time, but we don't know what's there, so we just keep driving. Because Woodstock's better at marketing their square, or Crystal Lake is better at marketing something. So it'll be to be able to launch off of that on, you know, come here, park your bike, and spend the day, or whatever we choose to do. Your vision for downtown, I agree. I think the heart of the Fox River is who we are. And with the development of Riverwalk and the continued commitment to finish that project, it's as good as it can be. We have a natural resource that is attractive and will be ever more so as we continue to develop. So I think we're there. To your point of retail space, I call it the Goldilocks effect. What we have is the wrong size, and people are looking for something different. So for what I know to be vacant, we need to focus on redeveloping and encouraging those property owners to move out of what they have into what we need. So I know that's a conversation that I often have. So I have called it the Goldilocks effect for years, that we have a lot of it, but it's the wrong stuff. And I'm looking forward to being part of that redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Bassey.
I'm very happy to see a lot of attention brought to walkers and bicyclists, being one of them myself. I would love to see the stores also have bike racks So, because if I'm going to go shopping, I usually have to call like the Jewel, hey, can I put my bicycle there? Is there a place? They're like, no, just bring it in. You know, so it's easier for me to go grocery shopping, to just put my helmet on, put it there, and boom, I'm at the Jewel. I think I might be one of the freaks that does it, though, but that's okay.
You are.
I am. And today, I actually was walking, I live by West Campus, and I went west to east to north, and I had a little difficulty crossing Main Street at 31. So that would be really great. And I was walking, I was not on my bicycle at the time. And it would be nice if it was safer to cross that street. Yeah, because I get a great deal of pleasure and enjoyment out of being able to ride my bike on the town and to be able to walk every single street in this town. So I'm very happy to see that. Thank you.
Alderman McClatchy.
Thank you. We hear all the time we have these vacant buildings, and a lot of people don't understand that someone owns this building. So we just can't wave a wand and say we want a Trader Joe's here and that kind of thing. We do have a firm that is a search firm. And Doug, I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit, where we're at. I don't think a lot of people know that we've got this search firm that reports back to us. They reach out to people like Trader Joe's or whatever to see if they're interested in the town. What's the latest on that?
We did have the retail coach. We don't utilize them anymore.
Okay.
We do have a computer program we use that helps us find tenants for vacant retail spaces. We don't actually have a search firm that we utilize right now.
Okay. I didn't know that, but so this website, pretty
you go at a specific site and you can pinpoint a site, and then it picks retailers that go at similar sites at other locations based on square footage and location and size, and it picks comparable tenants from other areas that might fit that location, and then gives you contact information based on what your area you're picking and retail tenants.
okay. Thank you.
Let me ask you one more question on retail and businesses, and that's the fact that I've felt for a long time that entrepreneurs is what we need, and we need creative ideas as far as opening up stores to get some foot traffic into some of these shopping centers, smaller stores that could possibly, by word of mouth, grow and possibly help grow the shopping centers. Do you know of any municipalities that actually have a program that would help entrepreneurs get started? Like if somebody would like to invest into a business, where would the city send them? To the college? I mean,
Tiny markets.
Yeah, your incubator program is really special when you look at what it does, allowing someone to not have to go through a whole lot of, I got to get a year lease or two, whatever it is, that they have that opportunity to start small, and if it works and takes off, I think that's something that's great. I don't know if you're familiar with other opportunities, anything to add to that?
I just want to point out, the biggest thing with Doug and Miller Point was the tiny shops and the incubator sites. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, Doug, how many of them are now looking for retail space?
We have 10 tiny shops, and then we have 4 of them that went into brick and mortar spaces, or going into brick and mortar spaces. So, and we also use the McHenry County College Small Business Development Center as a resource for entrepreneurs, for a lot of people there as well.
Three of those 10 are returning to the tiny shops this coming year for a second year. So that's 7 out of those 10 businesses that will remain in our community.
but if somebody takes and they're interested in opening up a business, maybe a certain type of business or whatever, and we send them to college to learn how to do it?
No, the Shaw Center down on Shamrock Lane, if they need help with a business plan, that's one aspect of what we do. We help them find locations, but we also send to the Shaw Center for like a business plan or to do a pro forma on about their business or the nuts and bolts of running a business. They do a lot of free services at the Shaw Center.
But do we follow up with them and so that we can take and constantly keep track of these people so that we know that they're on the right path? I mean, you know, okay, they go to the college and maybe after talking to everybody over there, there's still questions that they've got, and some people might not need that guidance, and there might be a lot of people that can, and that maybe that's what they need, is they need that little bit more confidence to take that step forward.
Yeah, we work with, we don't just send them there. We work with them in concert with the Shaw Center.
Okay.
The Shaw Center sends people to us as well. Not everyone needs to go there. Some people have a business plan.
All right.
If they need that service, then we send them there, and then we work with them at the same time.
Yeah. I think the more that they feel that the city's behind them, the more confident it could be to take that extra step to move forward on their dreams, let's say. So that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Strack?
So I think the tiny shops are a great success, and I think they're fantastic. I think part of the problem in the redevelopment conversation comes to where do they go? You rent a space in that location, and I've kind of been one people think against it. I think it's a wonderful program. I think part of the problem, though, is where do those entities end up as their second step? They start off in a very small unit. They're there for a duration of time, and to make the jump into the next step of their business, right now, we don't have a lot of 1,000 square foot, 1,500 square foot smaller spaces for them to make the next step. So that business goes from the incubator program where they have a really great situation for a period of time, and then they have to jump into a 5-year lease in a 2,500 square foot commercial space, and there's not a middle of that. We have the same thing in the housing industry. We have the missing middle. We have the middle in the retail section as well, and I think that's where we start to talk about redevelopment of town and what happens in some of these complexes. We've got owners that own large parcels that are empty, and we need to get with them and figure out how to grant, whether it's grants, whether it's state, federal, local, however we do that, to try to create some of those smaller steps so the incubator can continue to be successful. But all those businesses need to have a second step to go. And that's where you get the entrepreneurs that want to jump in and be able to do that. And I think the redevelopment piece and what we're doing in this comp plan is so critical in that, in showing some of those business owners that there's another alternative to that. Because right now, we're not giving them that. We're not saying, hey, we're not utilizing a PUD program to be able to incentivize anything, to be able to change our current zoning ordinances so people can think outside the box. And that's the next step of this phase as well that we really need to focus on. Thank you.
Outside the box is probably the key right there, what you said. Has anybody even thought about, let's say, the old Kmart building? Talking to the landlord as far as getting it divided up in maybe a little mini mall. I know malls have gone away, but you know what? Is there a way to get a building like that cut up enough to get smaller stores so that they can get into a brick and mortar?
You're going to see it shortly.
That's coming up next. That's what I was going to say, yeah. Yeah, and then really that's the next step. So if there's any other comments on that. And I'll say this, if there's, you go home over the weekend, you got ideas, please share. But yeah, now the next step is to answer some of these questions. You guys are already starting to see, I can see that, the wheels are spinning. So I'm going to try it next.
Thank you. Oh, you already had the slide. So all actually queued up for me very well here with the questions you all asked. So when you look at these big themes that came out of for this plan, think of it as desired outcomes. outcomes. Those are based off of what we heard from the people. And boiling all the conversations down, people wanted rural and natural heritage to be preserved. At the end, in 2045, they want the city to be multi-generational. They want it to be family-oriented. They want all the areas connected in the city through, walk, bike, automobile, everything. And then they want responsible growth. So one of the things we had done during this public engagement process was we did ask, somebody said, do they know how much it's going to cost? We did have jars, and we gave them 10 coins and said, this is your tax dollars. You're the mayor for the day. Where would you put your money? And got answers on downtown or economic development, walk, bike paths, and it did reflect. So that's where these themes or desired outcomes were derived from. So based off of that, what we did was we looked at what the final 2045 people want it to be, and we also looked at, you all have the existing conditions report, so we looked at that too to see, well, how can we get there? What should your goals be between now and 2045? So the next 5, balanced growth, community character, infrastructure, and fiscal sustainability, because you do need infrastructure, but you need to be able to sustain it with your tax dollars. And then diverse housing and economic resilience. So those are the goals that next will be basing those strategies that you were talking about will be such that they meet these goals. Okay, sorry, I apparently don't know how to do it. So, based on the design charrette, you all have the report from the design charrette. What we did was, everything you all asked for, you will see in this. So, you saw those 6 concepts. They were just concepts. What we did was we looked at where all would similar concepts work, development concepts, and then created this character area map so that people coming into town can say, oh, if I want to do development like this, I can do it in this area. Or if a development comes in one of these areas, you all can look at it and go, well, maybe we don't want this kind of development in this part of town, and tell that developer to go to where you do want that type of development, or basically say, this doesn't fit in our vision. So there's 6 character areas that actually came out of everything heard from the people, as well as mainly the design charrette report. And the first one is downtown mixed use. So you'll see that the Algonquin development, the Renew on the Main, that's the type of thing we're talking about, looking at how can we bring in more visitors, what are those economic development programs that should go in there. So all of that, the downtown mixed use character area will have. So when we do bring you strategies, they won't just be, oh, this is how you design. Well, to get somebody to build it like that, what are you going to have to give them incentives? How would you get them? Where would you find the money? All of that will be a part of those strategies. So, but this is the kind of development that we're talking about in downtown area, where you see downtown mixed use. And by the way, this is just a recommendation, so you all take this back, think about it. If you change the borders and say, no, we think this kind of development should go here, or something different, please let us know. So the next one is employment center. And the reason we chose this Method Soap Factory in Chicago, if you all know, this is basically based not just bringing in jobs and employment is important, but then bringing it in the small industrial manufacturing that also fits in with the character of the community, that preserves nature, has open spaces, is connected to trails. we did hear that people want their neighborhoods connected to the employment centers. So that's why we have few places, and when we go back in the map, you can see those purple ones are the employment center. We'll be connecting that. This is what you all have been talking about, is the vacant commercial, the big box retail that's vacant. Why is it not working out? So this concept is the suburban retrofit concept. There are multiple sites that have vacant storefronts. There's large paved areas. So this is, if you look at the design threat report, it does give a concept and a site plan idea of how can you break it up. And during the design threat we talked about, say you have a big box that's kind of failing, but we want something in there right now. It's making money, but how can we take the rest of the site that's fully vacant and not being utilized, develop that, get money flowing into the community, and then by then some developer will want to redevelop it. And that's also the place where you will get those missing middle commercial spaces. You'll get the missing middle housing in that area. It suddenly converts, and somebody mentioned about how people just drive through. Well, you're driving on 31 and you see a development instead of these big box retail, you're gonna know you've now left McHenry when you see those big box retails. You're gonna remember that McHenry has really quality development. So that's what suburban retrofit is about, not just use the vacant area to create a development that brings that small town character, that keeps that small town character. And so that's what we're looking for. And one of the Crystal Court Shopping Center in Crystal Lake is a good example of what can be done in those vacant shopping centers. The next one is the neighborhood commercial corridor. So this is also where that missing middle commercial can go. What we heard was there was nowhere for people to go shopping for their daily needs outside of the downtown area or those big shopping areas. So mainly west of downtown along 120, those shopping centers people couldn't get to, people couldn't use. So one of the things with this neighborhood commercial corridor type character is to add sidewalks, to add landscaping, to make it so that they're connected to the neighborhood. So one lady had shown us how she couldn't even walk to the business right on 120, and she lived one street north of it. And so she's like, I have to get in my car if I have to go. And that's what they didn't want. So what's the infrastructure? How can we redevelop what we have into what people would like to use? And that's where that retail clash is coming. Why do people want more retail but then have unused retail? That's because it's not fitting in where people want to go, how they want to shop, what experience do they want, has now changed from when those shopping centers were built. So those were built when big box was all the craze, and now it's all about shopping, retail experience, not just, go to buy something, because then you can order it on Amazon. And then we come to the residential area. So one of the things that is changing, especially if you want to preserve the small town character, is if you think back to the small town character, what is that? That is smaller houses, closer to each other, people sitting on their front porch, and the older people are on the front porch, the family next door has a younger child biking on, they know their neighbors are on the porch, they'll watch out the kid. It's like the village, the whole village involved in raising a child. How do you get that? That's not, if you live on 1 acre lots, that's not the small town character you're gonna get, that's the rural character you're gonna get. So you have to remember that we want both. We want that every type of, if you want a multi-generational community, then we have to create housing that is for different generations. So this is when what we say walkable residential, that is basically for residents that can walk in their own neighborhood, have amenities in their own neighborhood, have basically different housing sizes. So we're not saying that there shouldn't be acreage, but right next to the acreage, maybe there could be different, like a area where there are smaller different housing. This one is where you get that rural feel. So one way to get the rural feel is to have large acre or acreages farms. The other way to get it is when you do get new development coming into town, you require them to build it in a way that preserves your natural environment. So this is Prairie Crossing in Gray Lake. That's the small town feel, rural character. That's one of McHenry's greatest assets, and over we heard from people that we want to keep it. We want retail, we want growth, but we don't want to lose that character that we have. So this type of development is where you have conservation development, where you say, okay, you can maybe build a little closer in this much area, but then you keep 40% area you can develop. We'll give you higher density there, but then 60% has to be natural environment. You maintain it, you preserve it, you build walking paths, you build amenities for the whole community. So that's what we call the conservation type development. And so that's the sixth character type. So what we're looking at is you need every type to make this a multi-generational and balanced community. You don't, instead of having just one type of housing or one type of commercial development, now you have options and different characters that you can go for. So here's what we started with. Downtown, of course, is in downtown, and close to it, you can see, is the walkable residential development. Along 31 is your suburban retrofit. Along the 120, just east and west, is your neighborhood commercial corridors. You've got conservation all on your west side is conservation development. So that's just an idea right now. So y'all take a red pen to this and let us know what your thoughts are on it. We're also going to take it to the community and hear their thoughts on what they think of this layout. And so we'll come back to you to let you know what the community said. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the community. And then that's what our next steps are going to be. So you do need a guide for where what can develop. So once we hear back from you, once we hear back from the community, we'll finalize and turn this into a land use map. We'll also develop a mobility framework, or basically which roadways should be what character and how should they be built. We'll also go to the community, not just with the maps, but also with the goals and objectives and some strategies to meet those goals. And mid-March is when we'll be going to the community. And after that, we'll definitely bring it back to you to say, here's what the community thought. But that will be at the implementation workshop. What we like doing is, once we've vetted out which strategies you all like and which strategies the community like, well, just giving strategies, what's it going to do? How do you make them happen? Where do you get the funding? What are the action steps that you take? But to develop that, us saying it doesn't matter, you have to be ready to put dollars into it. So we ask that everyone who's involved in putting money towards the development, for example, council members, anyone who votes on the budget, or is involved in economic development, all the department directors, because they have to actually make it into their work plan, annual work plan. So we'll have all the city staff leadership, the elected and appointed leadership, people who make money decisions. We'd like to invite IDOT, those Metra, also some developers that do these type of developments, to ask them, hey, what would it take to build something like this in McHenry? What are those other things that you would want? That's the implementation workshop. We also ask at that implementation workshop for you all to prioritize those strategies. So which ones would you be interested in doing in the next 5 years? Which one do you want to look at maybe 6 to 10 years if conditions change? And which ones are, well, they're good to have if something happens different or money falls in our lap, we'll look at it, but generally let's put it 10 plus years. So that way you also get a plan that's prioritized, that people are ready to work on, there's a consensus on what we're gonna put our money towards, there's a consensus on what we're gonna put our efforts towards. So that's what we'll work at the implementation workshop. When I say workshop, I mean we do make you work. This is your plan, so you will be telling us what you're willing to and not willing to do, and we'll just put it in. And so those are our next steps. From here, there should have... What do I do? Oh, that's it. So discussion, if you all would like to have discussion on that, we all think about this.
One of the things that kind of concerned me is it seems like, and rightfully so, because we've invested so much money as our downtown area, but we really haven't talked too much about what we can do on the west end of town. You know, that's where the growth is, that's where the open areas are that will be built up, that's where the areas that are being built out just northwest of us, with a lot of residential that would, needless to say, would support some kind of growth down 120. Let's say, I don't know how familiar you are with the streets, but let's say Meadow, which is the light just before you get all the way down the park one.
So, are you talking about around here or just up here?
That's right.
You got it.
Basically would be. Yeah, just before the bend. Right here. That area there.
So that's where the idea of the neighborhood commercial center and how to connect. So that's the area where people north want to be connected to the commercial area, want to be here. There's this area where how do you connect the two areas for it to grow further? So there will be strategies for that. So that's why the north is more, it's a residential, walkable. South is more of the conservation development, and between to connect them is the neighborhood commercial corridor. So that's the idea there. These are developed and described much more in that Charette report. They'll be in the strategies in detail on how to do this.
Because I think, you know, granted this is a plan for 2050, but I think that west end, it's highly important that in the next few years that we really start working that, because our neighbors have plans for some kind of shopping areas out there a little further west of us, and needless to say, you want to be the one that have the base set first, and build up your business before your competition starts opening up.
And you know, that's at the implementation workshop, so that could be your first priority. Which areas, what strategies? So the strategies we have for that area right there could be your first priority. So that's when we'll have you all work through where should the first attention go.
I saw you first, Alderman Sandy.
No, thank you. No, and I agree with Alderman in regards to that should be one of our first priorities, that section. I'm interested to understand, you've got a captivative audience here, okay? And you went out and did your surveys, and you, community, high school, you know, different areas, different time frames. Get it. But now that you have this product, how do you get to the community and how do you get them to comprehend something like this it's got to be a very small time frame here. You're not going to be able to have a conversation with people that are at the VFW watching their kids playing baseball because they're going to be in and out in an hour and they're watching their kid. I mean, how do you get this information out in such a short amount of time and get some substantial answers?
So we will do the same thing where we do go to intercept. So we'll be at the Shamrock event and while we're here that weekend, we will make sure. So one of the things for something this comprehensive, you know, where people really need to first read it, then answer it. So what we will do is get the flyers and the postcards out to make them aware that this is online. Then have, again, the kind of survey online also for people to answer, do we like this, do we not, rate it, not rate it.
If I may, with a quick follow-up then. So would you make a announcement, social media, however, our website, where you're going to let people know you're going to be in a certain section for a certain period of time? Have that discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alderwoman Miller, do you still have a?
No, I was trying to get your attention.
Okay. Commissioner Locke?
I just want to ask, backing up jurisdictional disputes you were speaking to for projects, how important is it for the city to annex every bit of property into its footprint at this time, as opposed to encroachment from other possible municipalities? Because if you don't have a full footprint, you're really leaving yourself open for problems.
So I can just kind of answer that. I mean, when you're looking at annexing property, you got to look into a cost benefit, do a cost benefit analysis. One of the things you look at, of course, is that roadway infrastructure is a big question. If it's like a township road, then, you know, the city automatically has to assume ownership and maintenance responsibilities of that roadway. And then looking at also strategically, like, especially in areas like further east where potential development could spur off and where we have our borders kind of close knit and we don't have those agreements in place, like how do we get, you know, those annexations into the city first so that way we can reap the benefits, you know, 100 years from now if there's commercial development on the east side of town, right? So, I mean, is there a benefit to just annexing everything all at once? I think there can be, but it's a complicated question. It really depends on what infrastructure's there. And also, we might just not be able to. We've already annexed everything except for one pocket.
One pocket, right.
That we can legally annex.
Okay.
So those parcels on the outskirts of town.
Haven't lived, right?
Yeah, they're not,
Yeah.
they basically have to come to us and request to be annexed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the only area in town right now that we are able to force annex, what we decided not to was First, Second, and Third Avenue because they are private roads, or they were township roads officially.
They're private.
It was First, Second, Third Avenue? It was private roads, right? Private. They were private roads, and then it was decided that we didn't want to assume maintenance responsibilities of those that happened.
Well, they didn't want to agree on it, so, yeah.
Well, it's more complicated than that because it's not a township road, we automatically don't assume responsibility of maintenance, we might be getting into, there's a lot of nuance to annexations. I'm not sure how deep we want to go into that.
If it's been
There's a
open
lot
to the
of
public,
others.
if it's been open to the public, we have to assume, and I think when we looked at Fager's subdivision, I think we were looking at that we would have to assume some of those roads because of the fact that they were open to the public, even though they were privately owned. So,
The only, right,
yeah.
the only real way to determine that is to have a court sign on it. Really.
Just say, we
It's
did have those
complicated, right.
discussions when we looked at the Fager subdivision. Alderman McClatchy?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, to follow up on that, apparently the property line goes to the middle of their street. So you would have to get each property to agree to come into the city. Otherwise, it would be pretty much a mess. But, anyways, I just want to compliment on the presentation. I think it's a real good first step. And I also want to thank the Planning Commission. You're the front line on all of this. You're the first process to bring a lot of this to the council. So thank you so much for being here and the job you do.
Alderman Straka?
So Terry, I just wanted to expand on what you were talking about. We've had conversations around boundaries and how we're going to look at moving in the future and what we do about that. I think if I can expand on what you said, are you talking about our boundaries, north, south, east, west, and what's left in those agreements that we have with those other municipalities? I think it's an important topic we should be putting in front of our desks very quickly to figure out what to do in some of those areas. Maybe not taking them on immediately, but figuring out how we can make some opportunities to get some of those landowners to come in where they don't have a cost basis right now, but we can tie that up so that in the future we know that that's coming to us. I think it's an important thing that as we finish this process, we really need to start looking at all of that as well. So thanks for expanding on it.
Is there anybody else with this discussion right now? No? With that, do we have a closing statement or anything that you guys, or where are we at with?
Well, we'd like to thank you all for coming here and
Okay.
going through it, and just to let you know that these are all concepts. Everything in the design charrette, we would like to get your feedback on it. Also, that report, if the existing conditions report, if there are certain facts, that you feel might not be correct, we'd like to hear about that too. So anything out of all of these, if you have questions, if you want a change, if you think something should be edited, we'd really appreciate your feedback on it.
And I would imagine if any of us have questions or whatever, that we'd probably work through Ross to.
So I can, I'll resend, so it's at the top email, because I know sometimes we get emails and they get lost. But we'll send you the existing conditions report and then the charrette as well. So.
And this PowerPoint.
And this PowerPoint. So tomorrow, when you check your email, you should have all three of these presentations, or all the two reports in this presentation. So if you get going on them, you got questions, fire off Cody or I, and we can get them over to HDR.
Okay.
Do we have an April date for the implementation yet?
Not yet. So once we get some validation done, it depends on how much we get back and when we get back answers. We don't want to waste your time until we actually have some feedback from the community on which strategies they even want you all to look at.
So what are you looking for from us then?
So timing-wise, we're right now looking from you to 8 us out of all these 3 if you need any changes. When the dates and the outreach flyers come out, to let people know that this is out there and we need their feedback, if you'll act as ambassadors and get the word out. So that in March we're looking for, and we're hoping that we can do that implementation workshop sometime end of April, early May.
So you're going to look for our feedback to come soon?
Yes.
and then the public feedback coming in immediately after that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Miller.
I'm assuming with all the outreach that you've already done, you've collected a database of email addresses that you're able to reach back out to. Is that correct?
Yes, anybody that's given us their information that they wanted to be involved.
How many of those do you think you have? Not many.
It's kind of amazing how many want to be anonymous.
Okay.
I think we have a list of about maybe 20 emails from the sign-up, but we also have access to all the social media and every other means to keep getting information out. And so, we like to not rely on people giving us their email, because, like Ross said, a lot of people want to remain anonymous, so that's what we send flyers, when we put posters up, when we use social media, to make sure that you don't necessarily have to give us your information to still know what's going on. So we're all trying to redirect people to the website and, put these documents on, whenever we put new documents on there, try to put a social media post out so everyone's tracking it and keep up with that.
So we have the McHenry2050.com website, so that's the primary purpose on the survey, is that's where you can go to subscribe to find out more information and stay engaged, involved in the process, but,
Yeah, it's just a thought, but possibly down the road, if we're going to be reaching out again to the public, maybe every alderman, alderperson takes and actually has a town hall meeting of some sort with all the information later on. Just a possibility. I think maybe it's worth discussing further down the road.
Well, I think it's important that every person sitting at this table champions this conduct and make sure that we're pushing it out to our networks, because collectively, we touch a lot of people. And I think we need to own it as well as promote it, not just city staff. So
Right.
I think each of us needs to commit to promoting it and getting it out there as well.
Yeah. But individual discussion back and forth, though, I mean, again, we brought up, people want businesses, are they willing to support them, People want certain amenities, are they willing to pay for it, Those are discussions that are a lot easier face-to-face in a group, so.
Cody, what's that website?
Alderman,
McHenry2050.com.
I'll include a link tomorrow.
It's live.
It is live,
Correct.
yeah.
And there's brochures right at the main office too that have barcodes, so you can always pass those out. We can get more of those.
Great, thank you.
Alderwoman Bassey.
I work really well with deadlines, and I appreciate deadlines. And I know that you said March, you'd like to get the feedback. Would it be possible just to put out like a target date?
Tomorrow.
Okay, that works well. I function extremely well with deadlines and targets. I think that's the years of project management in me. If you were to say, I need this back by March 20th, great. And we're going to tentatively schedule something April 30th, great. I love deadlines and I work very, very well, so.
So let me go back and talk to my team and city team and see what deadlines we can give
They
you.
can be
I don't think-
tentative, but
Oh, yes.
something.
We're just, I'll go double check our schedule, and see
Okay.
when, I've worked at the city, so I'm not used to giving council members or P&Z members deadlines.
Well,
So-
they could be suggested
Yes.
deadlines. How's that sound?
We will give you a deadline, don't worry.
Yay, thank you very much.
It'll be in tomorrow's email.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Yes. I was just, we were talking about at the April meeting with the tentative schedule that you have set up. In April, we're going to do, like, where we talk about priorities of what we should focus on first, second, third. It sounds like some people here already have some priorities in their mind. I was wondering if you're going to reach out to the public and ask them what they think the priorities should be, so we have some idea of what the public is interested in we working on first or second, third. Like, I'm assuming we're going to make a list, right? Do this the first 5 years as 10-year goal.
So
Will the public have input on that?
when public will have input on what strategies they want to do, but not on action steps. Because when you do put the priorities, you are telling us also what actions you would be willing to make. So we want to manage expectations with the public, you know, we don't want them to think if they told us they want it next year, they'll get it next year.
Oh, no, I was just
So
wondering.
that's why we try.
Because it seems like the walkability factor was a big common theme if the public had, you know, which areas of the city we should be working on.
And so that's our hope, is when we come to you and we are doing the action steps, that you all will keep that in mind and see if there is money to put it in. So that discussion will be, well, are we going to have the money? When we have the money, then maybe this is your priority. Or the developers who will be at the meeting will they be willing to put in that kind of infrastructure in their development? If not, what will it take for them to put that in? Will they need incentives? What will they need? So that's the whole conversation, and we want to have it with y'all and people who actually will make it happen, and not raise hopes in the community that they're going to get something and to then come back and be like, well, you say we're going to do this.
Okay. Alderman Strack?
So, Stacy, it's interesting, we've got this walkability factor, right? You saw how high it scored on everything, and Doug can share and Cody can share, and I think we provided it to the representatives that are here tonight as well. There is a plan for a walk path to connect. It's a 4-mile loop. But then Doug had expanded on that after that and stretched some alternatives into neighborhoods as well to connect it all together. And it's really important that we look at that, but setting that expectation and getting the public involvement in what they want to see. The next phase comes to writing the check, and that's the problem. So I think that's where we run into that, like, how do we keep the public involved, but then figure out how to not let them down in that realm. But I'm hoping that we can see some of that as we get this plan progresses, how we'll mix into this as well. 31 expansion, as Alderman Bassey said, makes it really tough. Crossing 6 lanes at 31 will become really tough to connect that together.
Yeah.
Right, so then it's like, okay, we're not going under the road, but maybe we can go over it, right? We've got to figure out an alternative to be able to keep us connected in that 6-lane highway that's going to be. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
And I just want to add,
conversations that when we brought HDR on board, was this is what they do for a living. So they have knowledge about funding and grants and how other people have funded things that aren't necessarily in the budget each and every day. And we felt that was very important when Cody had recommended them and said, this is what this group does. We can do this on our own, but if we use professional consultants, they bring all sorts of tools and resources to the table. And you already sort of see that just in this presentation with the expectation is going to get better from here. So we have to manage the expectations of the consumer, but yet we're going to maximize our resource here and say, go find us $5 billion, so spend it. No pressure.
Alderwoman Bassey, did you have something?
no, I was just going to say, we were mentioning the walking. I wear a big, bright red coat when I walk, and you'd be surprised how many times cars have tried to hit me. And I don't know if it's because I'm elected or what, but
It's a big red coat.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up here then. I think everybody's done. I want to thank you for your presentation. I'll tell you, hour and a half, and it's amazing how fast it went with all this information you guys gave us in such a short time. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And with that, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Okay. Alderwoman Bassey? Second. Roll call?
Hang on. Who was the second?
Sorry?
I missed.
Santi. Oh, no, sorry, Bassey was.
Oh, yeah.
And then who?
McClatchy, Bassey.
And then Stacy has to do the same.
So I got back and then
McClatchy was the.
okay, sorry. Alderwoman Bassey?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
And we turn it over to,
Look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second. Do you want us, we always just say, all those in favor say aye.
You can do a voice vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried, motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned.